Hello again, this is Mr. Pete, your internet shop teacher, continuing with the series of the rebuild of the South Bend 7-inch shaper, and this is part 8. Now this part is dedicated exclusively to talking about the oil pump and the lubrication system, so you can pass over this one if you want, but that is one of the things that made this machine unique compared to the older model that it replaced. So let's begin. I will not be doing any of the reassembly in this video. This is strictly about lubrication. Now if you look at the older model here, you'll see that there are 3 Gitz oilers on each side, and that is what oils the dovetails. But looking at the newer machine here, you can see that those are absent, and there's a system of tubes and an oil pump in here that provides lubrication constantly to the ways and several other parts as well. There will be lots of still pictures at the end of this video for your perusal. Now this is a picture out of the South Bend Parts Manual from 1953 or newer. And that's a parts breakdown of the oil pump. It's really rather simply made. There's a little toggle here that is actuated by an eccentric that is behind the bowl gear, and that will not be visible at all in what I show you in the actual bowels of the machine. This is that eccentric. This is the bowl gear, looking at it from behind. So in other words, this is off-center. I don't believe it's a cam. They call it an eccentric, and that gives the reciprocating motion to that little toggle that I just showed you. Bruce Grattan recently sent me this parts breakdown again of the SHAPER oil pump, but this is also available on Vintage Machinery under the Army section, the Army parts manual. So if you look here, let me zoom in on that just a little bit, and this is all related information, I know, but this tube goes to the rocker arm shoe oil tube. This one is the ram gib oil tube, and then this one also. So there's a right and a left, and finally the bull gear oil tube. And note that the valves are shown in their maximum open position when the slots are up, and they can be adjusted if there's too much or too little oil. And looking down here at the bottom, here's the plunger that is actuated by that toggle that I showed you, and there's a bypass valve here with a ball in it. Oh, there's also a ball in here someplace too, I don't know exactly where, that keeps the oil from draining back down. But should there be too much oil and not enough flow up here, of course, there's a bypass valve like there is on a lot of pumps. I believe I've mentioned this before, but there's a little swinging door here, and you can take a screwdriver and access those little adjusting screws. And at that time you would be looking, the ram would be in place. Remember, I'm not fully assembled yet. The ram would be in place, and you would look through this hole. Alright, let's take a top view and see if I can zoom in on the oil pump, because I have not removed it, nor do I intend to. But I will show you a picture of one that a man did remove. He's got it in the vise, but there's the oil pump with the 4 little tubes coming out of there, as explained before. And you can see right here that one of the tubes is to this side, and the other one here is to the side closer to me. Let me clarify this, if I may. There's actually 2 tubes here on the far side. One tube goes into the way itself, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but I'm going to poke this Allen wrench into a little hole that is the actual oil hole. Right in there, and then there's one, of course, on the other side as well. This tube here is dripping constantly, or pumping oil constantly, onto the big bull gear. I've reversed the camera now, and the final, number 4, tiny tube here is the one that constantly pumps oil in the little oil tray for the bronze sliding mechanism. And I guess I could best show you this way, but here's that little oil tray or pan that the very last tube that I showed you drips into. There's a hole, so it accumulates a little bit, then it goes down the hole and lubricates the brass and the shaft that goes through this hole. So that constitutes the oil pumping mechanism and where it goes, how it's distributed. Of course, once the machine is immersed in oil and assembled and all that, you can't see any of this. That's why I'm taking the time now to show you. So there's the oil pump way down in there, and I'm going to rotate it now and watch the reciprocal action of the pump if you can. Can you see the toggle moving up and down, or is that not visible? And right between, well, if I can point it out here, that's the actual pump, and I'm touching the toggle, and this is the overflow pump, or bypass valve, if you want to call it that. And now I'm pumping it with that rod. And that's all there is to it. Since we are recirculating the oil, reusing it, there has to be a way of capturing it. So on the end of the dovetail here is this aluminum oil return casting. It's made of aluminum, and when I reinstall it, I will have to put some mastic on there of some kind so it won't leak. But the extra oil will drip here and then back down into the sump. Similarly, on the front of the machine there are 2 separate castings, one to go right here and one right here to return the oil. Kind of ingenious, but simple too. Now this oiler must have been pretty effective. There's a lot of scraping marks on here, but some of them are missing. In other words, up here there's not much scraping left, which means either it didn't get enough oil or it got blocked off or something of that nature. But still not bad for a, 65-year-old machine. Remember that on this side of the machine there is an oil plug, and I took that out and put a nipple in there so that it doesn't drool all over the place. But I may or I may not drain the oil after a short period of time if it turns out that it's still flushing out a lot of dirt. But I'll tighten that up for now so when I start it we don't have a mess. Well, there had been much discussion about what kind of oil should be used, and here it says use a medium weight of good grade machine oil. Someplace it says do not use any detergent type of oil, but they refer to Saybolt viscosity 150 to 240. That's always very confusing. I have had advice from people that said just use 20 weight oil. Some say use hydraulic oil. Apparently it is not that critical when you think about it, because no telling what kind of oil has been used in this machine in the last 60 years. Probably anything they had around the shop. Alright, these are oils that I bought at the Napa store. This one about 5 years ago, but notice that it just says non-detergent lubricating oil, 20 weight. They no longer stock that. This is what they had now, and they just call it non-detergent 20 weight motor oil. So this is what I'll use this up, and then I'm going to use this, and that's also what I use in the Atlas lathe. That's why it's marked Atlas. So good luck on finding that oil. You're not going to find it at AutoZone or O'Reilly's or any of those mass marketers. Supposedly the machine holds approximately 1 quart, but if you look down here, there is a threaded hole that says oil level. So what they want you to do is to start adding oil until it starts to drool out of that hole like we did on a lot of tractors. But since I have good vision here with the top off, I'm just going to go ahead for now and put that plug in. Well, the oil can be added through here, that's what they tell you, because it's still disassembled, but it's probably easier for me just to dump it in on the top. And as I look down into the machine, I can easily see that it has slightly covered this plug, so 1 quart maximum. Okay, I'm going to pump with this rod. Then later I'm going to try it with the motor, but watch now as I pump. I've got some dirty oil coming out. I don't know if that shows up. You see the dirty oil? So the oil is definitely coming out, and look at it come out here. Boy, that didn't take much to get the oil moving, did it? So I got a clear oil gallery there, and the one that drips on the bowl gear. Now I have to see if this other one is flowing. Nothing coming out of the other side. So we got 2 that are flowing probably too much from the looks of that, and nothing on the other side, so I have to make an adjustment. Alright, you can see it actually squirting, but there's still nothing coming out of the other one here that drips on the brass shoe. And I'm flooding here. Well, I'm getting no oil at all coming out of this tube here. So I examined it with my inspection mirror, and it is crimped off, almost like someone cut it with side cutters. So I will have to open that up. They probably had a reason for doing that. Maybe it was pumping too much oil, I don't know. But, you know, I don't know why that was done unless it's an act of vandalism. So let me try to open that up, which may not be easy, by the way. I might have to cut it with a little cut-off wheel. Well, that actually was too easy. What I did was held it with the needle nose pliers and filed it. Didn't take much. And now watch when I pump, because immediately I had some dirty oil come out. However, I'm not totally sure whether someone has tampered with it at some point and removed a portion of the tube, because it doesn't look like it's in position. Can you see it dripping now? I'll close the other two. There she's squirting. So the old dirty oil has been purged. I hope that shows up. Also, watch, if you would, right here on this fitting. When I block the other one with my finger, you'll see that oil squirts out there. I don't know if that's just pressure relief, because I don't see that it's aiming at anything particular, although some of it's getting on the side of the gear. But I think maybe that problem is solved, at least for now. Now this gib goes into that position right there, and of course notice that there is an oil groove here to help distribute the oil. But since there is no gib on the far side, there is an oil groove up there in the dovetail that looks just like this. So it's a reverse image. You know, I'm very well aware that I could turn a 5-minute video into a 20-minute video, but I guess so be it. But if I can get Jordan over here, I would like to electrify this and get the pump going and just show you how it pumps. However, it won't be too much different than what I showed you by manually pumping. I'm looking through the keyhole. I feel kind of naughty. But there you can see the positions of the valves. Straight up would be full flow, and crossways would be off. Probably simple little valves. All right, I got my grandson Jordan. Say hi, Jordan. And he's got the DeWalt drill rigged up, and he's going to operate this, and that will cause the oil pump, of course, to operate. So go ahead, Jordan, let's pump some oil. A little faster, if you will. Faster yet. And you see the oil coming out of here? And here. Thank you, Jordan. That's it. Well, I made a bit of a mess, and I do not intend to change the oil because I do not see that it's getting dirty at all. I had it pretty well cleaned out. And I also fully understand, I know somebody's going to say this, that once the ram is in place and the thing is assembled, that there is quite a restriction on the oil pressure. So I will have to readjust those valves at that time after final assembly. Now stay tuned for all of those still pictures near the end after I'm done talking. Thank you for watching, and be sure and watch part 9 where I continue with the assembly. So there'll probably be another 2 or 3 parts yet in this video series. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now. This LED light from Banggood is quite useful for this purpose. It just happens to be the exact size of that opening, and I've got it clamped on an old magnet from a dial indicator, and that's just perfect for photography. Although I did not take the oil pump out of my shaper, a man by the name of Bill Lewis did, and he sent me a picture of it, and this is a screenshot. The pump is being held in a vise, and this is the little pump here, which would be moved up and down. That's the overflow valve, and here's the manifold and so on with the copper tubing. So that's what it looks like when it's removed from the machine. And I just called this overflow, and I meant pressure relief valve. If you are interested in printing a copy of the South Bend Shaper parts list, go to Vintage Machinery, and this is what you need to look up, and then you can print it out. And if you wish to print out the entire South Bend Shaper booklet, How to Run a Shaper, here it is, and this is the Army version of it, which I believe also contains the parts lists. Check that out on Vintage Machinery as well. This is a page from the 1956 South Bend catalog when they are apparently introducing, it says here, new South Bend vertical mill. So that's when that mill was introduced. And of course we got a beautiful babe here on her way to a formal dance introducing it, which means now nobody's looking at the machine, they're looking at the girl. This was the machine that I bought at the high school. The very first machine that I ever purchased for the school was about $2,500, I think, in 1969. And it was a wonderful machine. I just loved it. I had this for years before I had a Bridgeport. It used the number 30 milling machine taper in the spindle. Quite a simple but beautiful and useful machine. These are the front oil return drains, and this is the rear oil return drain, made of aluminum, all slanted so the oil will run back into the sump.